Good evening. Tonight we're going to do some review here of adding and subtracting decimal numbers. We've done a lot of adding and subtracting decimal numbers this year, but you've kind of had free reign to use the calculator. Today I want to slow down and make sure we know how to do it without a calculator. Something we should be able to do. Okay. Well, first of all, before we start adding and subtracting them, let's make sure we can compare them. We've done lots of problems with like these, and today we've thrown a couple decimals in. Shouldn't be too difficult for you here, but they'll progressively get more difficult in the problem sets. Arrange these numbers from least to greatest. Well, I'm looking at my negative number as my smallest number. I'm looking at 0 as being smaller than all the positive numbers. And then we've got some decisions to make. First of all, I guess I'd look at 1/2 and 0.3 as being less than 1. So the question is, as opposed to 2 and 1.75, which are greater than 1. So which one's smaller? Well, 0.5 is a half, so 0.3 is actually smaller than 1/2. Then we got the 1/2. Then obviously, I think, obviously to you anyway, the 1.75 is smaller than the 2. And there we go. Everything's ordered. It's in its original form. If you do pencil down that 1/2 is 0.5, that's not what you should be including in the order. You should be including 1/2 in the order as your answer. Okay, let's compare these numbers. Well, when we compare decimals, you need to work from left to right. And as soon as we find one decimal place that is greater than the other, then we know that entire number is greater. So looking at these zeros here, that's a tie. So we'll move on to the first decimal place, known as the tenths place. That's a tie as well. Let's move on to the hundredths place. They're both threes. That's a tie. And we'll move on to the thousandth place. And the fact that this 6 is bigger than this 5 means that this entire number is greater than the other entire number. So just work left to right. Don't work right to left. All right, so adding decimals. The key thing about adding decimals is you have to line up the decimal points. 5 plus 0 is 5. 7 plus 5 is 12. Don't forget about this idea of when 7 plus 5 is 12 that we have to carry the 1. There's our decimal point right there. Don't forget that. 7 plus 2 plus 1 is 10. Notice that when I wrote 10, I carried the 1 again. So then 1 plus 1 is 2. So 7.5 plus 12.75 is 20.25. Even if you just estimate this, 8 plus 13 is 21. So this is close to 21. It's about right. Just like the answer to this, 4 plus 12, it should be about 16. Line up those decimal points though. 0.2. Just bring that decimal point straight down. And then lastly, 0.3 plus 0.8 is 3 plus 8 is 11. So carry that 1, put the decimal point in, and then 1 plus 0 is 1. So 1.1. One note here back here on example C is that you might notice that I did 12.75 plus 7.5 instead of 7.5 plus 12.75. That's because addition is commutative, and it doesn't matter what order we add in. I usually put the biggest number or the number with the most digits on top. I don't know why I do that, but it just tends to be my pattern. I can do that with addition. I cannot do that with subtraction, however, because subtraction is not commutative, and that's where we're here on F. So I have to do 11.46 minus 3.6. Line up those decimals when you're adding and subtracting. Okay. Now, I'm going to throw a 0 in there. 6 minus 0 is 6. Now, when I'm having this next step, I'm trying to do 4 minus 6. Well, I can't really do that, so I'm going to borrow from this whole number over here. Borrow from this 1. Let's make that a 0. which then I can make this 4 a 14. Now I can subtract. 14 minus 6 is 8. There's my decimal point. I run into the same problem here again, though. I can't do 3 from 0. So I'll borrow from this 1 over here, make that a 0, and make the 0 a 10. And then 10 minus 3 is 7. So 7.86. You know, again, if we use estimating, then 11 minus 4 is 7. So, you know, your answer better make sense. Okay, next one. 5.2 minus 4.87. Line up those decimals. I'm going to add a 0 in there. Since I can't do 0 minus 7, I'm going to borrow from this 2, make it a 1, which is going to make that 0 a 10. 10 minus 7 is 3. Again, I can't do 1 minus 8, so I'm going to come over here and borrow from this 5. Makes that an 11. 11 minus 8 is 3. 4 minus 4 is 0. So 0.33. So again, over here, if we did 5 minus 5, that's nothing, 0. And 0.33 is pretty close to 0. Last one, 3 minus 2.94. Got to line up those decimals. Got to add in a couple zeros here and a decimal point. I'm going to come all the way over here and borrow from this 3 so I can make this 0 a 10. I'm going to borrow from that 10 so I can make this 0 a 10. 10 minus 4 is 6. 9 minus 9 is 0. 2 minus 2 is 0. 0.06. Hopefully you remember all that borrowing stuff. If not, I really want you to try that on the problem sets. No calculators on simple subtraction problems like this for a little while here, guys. How can we check our answers in F through H? Well, let's take a look at F through H here. That was where we just did that subtraction. How can we check our answers? We can check the solution to subtraction problems by adding the difference to the subtrahend, and we should get the minuend. I'm using those fancy words just to remind you of them. But for example, or for instance, in example F, the difference was 7.86, and the subtrahend was 3.6. So when we add those together, we should get the minuend, which was 11.46. Yep. So my answer must be right. Checks out. The weather report stated that the recent storm dropped 1.5 inches of rain, raising the seasonal total to 26.42 inches. What was the seasonal total prior to the recent storm? Okay, here it is originally. We're going to subtract that 1.5 that dropped since its original. 2 minus 0 is 2. I got to borrow from this 6. Makes that a 5. 14 minus 5 is 9. Don't forget your decimal point. 5 minus 1 is 4. 2 minus 0 is 2. So prior to the 1.5 inches dropping, the total was 24.92 inches. All right, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching.